booty time, across the USA. Booty time, hey, hey, hey. Booty time, across the USA. It's booty time, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Unbelievable.
I just realized that I didn't have the start screen up. Oops, my bad. You get to watch me sit here and pick my nose, probably. Either way, welcome. It is Sunday, around 11 a.m. Central Daylight, March the 15th. Might not be very long today. I'm really tired. I haven't slept well the last few nights and it's starting to catch up with me. The influx of caffeine this morning has been constant. It's still barely keeping me awake, but the show must go on. I didn't have a specific topic really lined up. It's one of those weekends where I've been fighting the doom and gloom thoughts, the negativity. And that's been kind of dominating the forefront of my mind. So it makes it difficult to talk about, things that are on my mind right now without going negative. So I decided I wasn't going to do that. I don't really need to feed that beast. Plus, what entertainment value is there in watching someone moan about life and existence and things like that? So I'm going to avoid that. I was browsing through the news here a little bit. It seems to be a whole lot of the same old thing. There's one story here that caught my attention, though, that I was going to look at. Data centers powered by human brain cells. Let's see if I can find a site that I can look at without constant ads. I guess, that's one solution to the RAM shortage, huh? Let's just start harvesting brain tissue. Not really. It looks like it's just some experimental stuff that is getting out there for PR purposes. All right. Well, there's not really much in the news cycle today that I'm just that thrilled about, to be honest. I don't really like talking about what's going on over in Iran. I don't have anything meaningful to add to that discussion. All I could do would be to amplify what's out there in the media, which, is pretty well curated to appeal to one mindset or its opposing mindset. And I feel like situations like this are complex enough that just adding to the emotional reaction is not beneficial to anybody. So I really don't want to get involved. Other than to say that in general, I'm not a big fan of war for any reason. It feels like a last resort to me morally, but I guess technically, we haven't been in a war since World War II, so I shouldn't use the word war, right? With the Article 2 abuse, but that's been going on for, since I've been alive. and I just I can't really get interested in, entertainment news, in financial news these days. It's just it's just depressing. Um, there's not a lot to talk about in gaming right now for me. I mean, most people are focused on. Let's look back here. Most people are focused on Marathon, which doesn't really appeal to me that much. I'm sure it's fun, but I don't see any reason to go away from our creators to play it because it just the aesthetics, the style of gameplay and everything. Um, I might have enjoyed it, years ago, but it doesn't really jump out at me. Doesn't really draw me in. Um, and other than announcements and stuff, there's not a lot else going on right now that is that interesting to me. So, um, so one thing that where my mind was going a little bit this weekend was Persephone had recommended a movie to watch that I finally got around to watching. It was that Alan Richardson movie, The War Machine. So I watched it, and she liked it. She recommended it, and it was I overall I would say it's it's a fun watch. Um, reminds me very much of the old '90s era sci-fi original movies, um, where it's pretty straightforward. Not a whole lot of innovation. Um, it's kind of what you expect. It's what it says on the tin, if you will, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Um, and I think it's low um, low requirement entertainment. It doesn't require you to think a whole lot. It doesn't require you to follow plot, terror. Like try to um, guess what's happening or what's going to happen, figure it out. It's just straightforward entertainment. And for that, I think it was decent. Richardson seems pretty good at what he does, but it's not like very broad. It's pretty narrow. His niche. And there's again nothing wrong with that. I think he's probably one of those guys that over time is going to, follow the Arnold model where it's physical presence roles that gradually lead towards kind of a loosening up. I didn't watch the what was the one recently with him and um, Henry Cavill? It was a sort of a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen type title. I can't remember what it was called, but anyway, I didn't watch that. Apparently, he was a little more a little bit outside of his typical roles of this one. I like his version of Reacher. I think it's much better than Tom Cruise as Reacher. Which I can't for the life of me figure out why they cast a garden gnome as Jack Reacher. But when the character is in large part based around an imposing physical presence as one of its defining characteristics. But anyway, getting off on a tangent here. But anyway, I watch it as decent. I wouldn't say I recommend it, but if you like that kind of, that kind of low, I don't know, a movie that doesn't require you to do much except just sit there and enjoy it. give it a shot. I do like that it didn't include a bunch of bullshit that seems to infect every movie nowadays, where it's got to be deconstructed. Let's take this idea and let's deconstruct it. And I'm putting that in air quotes. Or let's flip something, and nope, just straight ahead. It is what it is. No need for all the, it's like this, but, kind of stuff. But anyway, where I was going with that is it got me thinking about movies, especially started me thinking about, some of the differences between what movies are like now and what they used to be. Sorry, my throat's a little rough today. I don't know if it's the wind has stirred something up in the air or what, but my throat's a little scratchy today, so I'm going to keep lubricating it. Got me thinking about comparing like 80s movies, which I keep, 80s is like my frame of reference for comparison because it is so significantly different a time period than what we live in today. It's almost like the polar opposite of how we live now. But it got me thinking about 80s movies, and especially I started thinking about, this War Machine was a Netflix movie, but it reminded me of the old sci-fi original movies, which then made me think about the old, a lot of the movies in the 80s that I would never have gone to the theater, or that I didn't go to the theater to see, but I caught on cable. They were like just constant features on cable. You encountered them because they were always on, they were on HBO or Cinemax or something. They were always playing. I say always, they were frequently playing. But then a lot of those movies nobody talks about anymore. You just don't think about them. Some of them were really good and some of them were not so good, but they don't even, it's like people have completely forgotten them. So I started thinking about, what were some of those movies, and trying to remember, some of the titles and stuff of movies that I don't feel like get a lot of a nostalgic remembrance these days that people don't, and I'm gauging that based off of, what comes through my feed. I know a lot of people make a lot of younger people especially make YouTube content around reaction to old stuff, like old music and old movies. And there's a lot of these movies from that era that I think deserve a little more attention, not because necessarily they're great, but because they're different and fun. So anyway, I started thinking about, okay, maybe I'll start making lists or something to talk about stuff like that. And in thinking about that, I started thinking about, okay, what's from 1980 and then what's from 1981. And that's when I looked at 81. It's like, man, I forgot how stacked 81 was for movies. What a great year in movies. So I brought up the, see if I can get this bigger. Maybe we can do it this way. There we go. That's a little better. So I just brought up the IMDb list for the movies from 1981 and was scanning down through them. And it's like, man, what a stacked year for movies. And yes, not all of them were great, but the variety and the entertainment value of the movies that year is just huge. So I was going to scroll through here and mention a few of them in case, anybody out there is looking for time killers, wants to look, for some older stuff that maybe they haven't seen before. I mean, Raiders of the Lost Ark, obviously huge. No need to really talk about that. This Possession one I never saw. Don't really know that much about it other than I think it was kind of a sexploitation mystery, supernatural kind of thing. But I never really saw it. Don't know much about it. Then you go to Excalibur. what a quintessential 80s movie, in that they took a classic story, Arthurian story, pretty faithful to it overall, reasonably. There's so many different versions of the Arthurian myth that it's kind of hard to decide what faithful is and what it isn't. But it put the 80s spin on it, the aesthetic spin. I can honestly say that there aren't many other movies I know of that look like Excalibur. It's like if you see a frame or a moment of Excalibur, you know what movie you're looking at, because there weren't a lot of copies that captured the same kind of thing. So if you've never seen Excalibur, definitely recommend it. Watch it. Again, not a great movie. I won't say it's a great movie. It's not, but well worth watching because it has so many factors that are so interesting. It's got a great cast. It's an interesting spin on the story. The cinematography is, again, I won't say it's great. It's unique. It's very unique and worth watching. The score is really good. Very good. Just give it a chance if you haven't seen it. Evil Dead. Everybody knows about Evil Dead. I don't really need to talk about Evil Dead. But again, great year. The Boat, Das Boot. This one was in the 80s and for a long time during the 80s, after 82, for easily most of the decade, was a very talked about movie. It's a great movie. Very well done. It's a, kind of a tense wartime thriller set on a German U-boat. Great actors, great story, great script. Even if you have to watch it with subtitles, highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. If you like that style of movie at all, kind of the tense thriller type thing, very worth a watch. Then, Escape from New York. Come on. Everybody knows Escape from New York, right? It's again, not a good movie. No one would call it a good movie. It's a very fun movie to watch. And especially at the time when it was hard to know whether it was supposed to be parody or sincere, because it comes off very sincere, and I take it as sincere. I don't take it as parody. But the longer it was out, the more it felt more and more like parody. But very fun movie to watch. James Caan Thief. I watched that, and I remember it got some press for a while, but it just disappeared. I don't remember a lot about it, honestly. So that's one I'm going to have to add to my list to rewatch, because I really just don't remember much about it. And then Blowout, which was a Travolta movie with Nancy, what's her name? Nancy Allen, I think. Yeah, Nancy Allen, says it right there on the poster. Not a bad movie, honestly. It probably is more style than substance, but it's Brian De Palma, so you kind of expect that. But it's really not bad. It's a crime mystery thriller thing. John Travolta plays a sound engineer who was recording sounds, and he happened to capture the sound of a traffic accident or a wreck, a car going off the road where someone, can't remember who it was, if it was a politician or someone of note, died. And then he discovers some, anomalies in his sound recording, and then it turns into like a suspense, kind of conspiracy type of thing going on. But it's a decent movie. I think it's worth giving a chance. Again, if you like that kind of thriller stuff, it's an unusual example of that genre. and I don't think it gets enough attention. It's not a great movie, but I don't think it gets enough attention. It's almost completely forgotten now, which is too bad. History of the World Part 1. Everybody knows that one. Mel Brooks. Very funny movie. If for some god awful reason you haven't seen it, watch it. Body Heat was pretty famous as being like, quasi porn. I'll be honest, I never watched it. I had no interest in it. But it was like, a very sexy movie. I don't honestly know if the story is worth a shit or not. And it was pretty famous for years, as kind of an example of a sexy noir type, movie, but it's never appealed to me. So it's up to you. Fox and the Hound, Disney, whatever. I'm sure it's a very cute movie. I don't think I ever saw it. Time Bandits, great movie. If you like Terry Gilliam, you'll really like Time Bandits. There's a lot to like about Time Bandits. There's a lot that's kind of seems very rough if you watch it now, in terms of like some of the cinematography and stuff like that, even some of the script. But it's a very fun movie. Give it a chance if you haven't watched it. And if you like any Terry Gilliam movies, I think you'll like Time Bandits. There's a lot of good moments in that movie. Cannonball Run, for what it is, pretty funny. It's a very dated period thing, though. Bond is Bond. I never liked Roger Moore as Bond. Roger Moore was the saint in my mind, not James Bond, but if you like Bond, you've already seen it. If you don't, it's probably not that exciting. American Werewolf in London. So one of the interesting things about this period, this early 80s, 81, 82-ish era, was all of a sudden the resurgence of werewolf movies, or wolf-oriented movies. I'll put it that way. Because there's one that's not actually a werewolf movie, but it's lumped into it very often. And American Werewolf in London is probably the one that has stood the test of time. So I would not consider this an underappreciated movie. But it's a fun movie. It's got the effects at the time of the transformation, and some of the gore effects were very touted because they were ahead of their time. It stands up pretty well, but it's kind of just a straightforward monster movie, really, that at the time felt like a modern twist on the monster movie, but now is kind of a dated version of the monster movie, but worth watching. Road Warrior, great movie. Mad Max 2, Road Warrior. I still think of it as the Road Warrior because that's how it was marketed and how I came across it. Fantastic movie. I don't have to say anything about that because everybody knows this movie, right? Stripes. Stripes is like, I won't say peak Bill Murray. It's peak that version of Bill Murray. Which, going back and looking at it, it's funny how that style of character, that Ferris Bueller, that smart ass, everything's a joke, really kind of asshole type character, was the leading character in a lot of movies. I like Stripes. I think it's a great movie. I think it's a fun movie. I enjoyed it. I watch the shit out. Extremely quotable. And for that genre of movie, that semi-absurd, it's not really absurd. It's more like awkward, fish out of water comedy type thing. It's a good example of it. And if you haven't seen it and you like anything Bill Murray, watch it. But you can tell the difference that Bill Murray from those era of movies, the what was the camp one? Meatballs, Stripes, the kind of probably, I won't say Ghostbusters, but he was kind of the same type of character in Ghostbusters. But Ghostbusters was more of an ensemble. So it wasn't just him. dragging all of the straight men along with him. But yeah, so he probably kind of peaked with Ghostbusters. But if you're looking for just him playing that character as the main thing in the movie, it's a pretty funny movie. It's got a lot of good actors in it too. You know, Harold Ramis is his co-star. It's got John Candy. I can't remember the names of a lot of the sidekick characters that were part of his platoon, but it's worth watching. My Dinner with Andre, I've never seen that. I know it's an art house movie. It's basically a conversation. I like Wallace Shawn. Someday I'll probably watch it, but honestly, I probably don't have the patience for it these days. Oh, Porky's. Porky's is probably the epitome of that era of dumb sex comedy, horny teenager comedy. It's very much that is the theme. Horny teenagers getting into hijinks. There are a few funny moments in it, like laugh out loud funny moments in it. But talk about a movie that didn't hold up. And I'm not saying because, oh my God, it's so sexist or whatever. Of course it's sexist. It was horny teenagers in the early 80s. Of course it is. That I don't particularly find that offensive. It's an artifact of a time period. But you should probably watch it if you have any interest in those kinds of almost like an archaeology project, looking at it to see what was considered funny at the time. It really came out of nowhere and was pretty successful because there are a few pretty, what at the time were very funny moments because they were kind of, clutch the pearls funny. I can't believe they're doing that kind of funny. Looking back, other movies and other shows and stuff have well exceeded the shock value comedy. But there's some pretty funny moments in it. So, give it a try. Heavy metal. I love heavy metal. It's, again, heavy metal is like the 70s. It came out in 81, but it is very much a 70s movie, in my opinion. It's got the 70s comic book sex idea. It's an animated, a bunch of animated shorts strung together with a tie-in across them. And the added theme that they're all heavily entwined with music, modern music, which modern at the time, basically rock music. They call it heavy metal, but it wasn't really heavy metal at the time because this kind of predates the genre of heavy metal, really. But I think it's a very interesting look at that 70s style of comic book. I say comic book, I don't mean like Marvel DC comic books. I mean like the pulp comics. Integration of sex, violence, fantasy, and rock music. Give it a try. I think it's pretty good. I don't know anything about this. I think it's a foreign film or an art house movie. Christiane F. Don't know anything about it. Chariots of Fire, good movie. Won a shit ton of Oscars. Vangelis theme song, like charted. It's okay. I don't consider it a great movie. I think it's okay. That's about all I don't care about Friday the 13th. I don't like slasher movies, so whatever. Scanners. Scanners was notorious. It's kind of funny to watch now because it's not really shocking at all, but it was kind of notorious as a gore horror movie. But it's kind of fun. If you like dated horror movies, like if you like Evil Dead, you'll love Scanners. Well, I shouldn't say love. You'll enjoy Scanners quite a bit. It's worth watching if you like that type of I won't say low budget, but I certainly like that style of horror movie. It's kind of a sci-fi horror movie, more than a slasher movie like Friday the 13th. I just never understood the slasher movies. They just weren't for me. Okay. Here's the one that probably got me thinking about some of these underappreciated movies from the early 80s, and that's Dragon Slayer. Why doesn't Dragon Slayer get any attention today? Why doesn't it get any credit? Dragon Slayer is a great fantasy movie and probably the best representation of special effects representation of a dragon on screen. In my opinion, I think it kicks the shit out of Game of Thrones. Not, I mean, okay, the FX are a little dated, but it's in the same ballpark, and I think the way it was handled was better. It's a great movie. It's a classic story, well written, well paced, in my opinion. It's not go go go, and it's not shock shock shock, but there's a little go go, a little shock, lots of character work, straightforward plot, but well revealed, a little twisty. It's very good. I would say it ranks number one on my list of underappreciated movies from 1981. Might even go towards the top of my list for underappreciated movies of the early 1980s. Highly recommend giving Dragon Slayer a chance. Halloween 2, again, don't really care. I have no idea what Southern Comfort is. Never saw it. Arthur doesn't get talked about much either. I never found it that entertaining, but Dudley Moore is definitely a character in the movie. His drunk character was almost like a point of reference for that style of character for a long time. The drunk clown. It's pretty fluffy, in my opinion. The theme song, the Christopher Cross theme song, again, charted. I wouldn't go out of my way to watch it, but I would probably watch it if it was on, if I had nothing else trumping it in my queue, I would probably watch it. And if you like that style of light comedy romance, give it a try. It's got Liza Minnelli in it. I never thought of her much as an actress, but she's not bad in it. John Gielgud is really good in it. He's good in everything. Reds. I watched Reds once, and that was enough. Never appealed to me. It was definitely Oscar bait movie. Honestly, just never. There was nothing that really I found that appealing about it. A lot of people loved it. A lot of people said it was great. It was definitely an Oscar bait movie. Just didn't care for it. On Golden Pond, also an Oscar bait movie, but it deserved to be it deserved Oscars. It was, it had great actors. Henry Fonda, his daughter Jane, Katharine Hepburn, quotable. A really good movie that showcased older characters played by older actors as the focal point, that wasn't gimmicky about them. It's a good story. It's solid. And there are some, it's one of those, touch your heart movies, and it does a pretty good job of it. I'd say if you haven't seen it, give it a try. if you like those kinds of dramatic movies that have some humor, they've got some drama. If you're not put off by having it be about old people, it's not just about the old people. It's also about Jane Fonda having to deal with, her the problems of being part of a family with aging parents, and she's all with the younger kid also, the generational stuff. It's a good movie. It's solid. Cutter's Way, I remember the name, don't really think I watched it, so I can't say much about it. The Howling was one of those werewolf movies of the period. If you like werewolf movies, give it a chance. It's not terrible. It's definitely not the comedy gore like American Werewolf. It probably doesn't have as many vectors of entertainment as American Werewolf does, but it's a werewolf movie, and it's a decent one. Clash of the Titans, what a classic movie. And again, another very 80s movie. It takes a classic mythology story and makes it an 80s style movie. I recommend, I would put Clash of the Titans up there. And I don't think it's underappreciated because a lot of people still talk about it. Maybe not as much as it was talked about back then, but it's still mentioned. It's not quite as obscure, or as underappreciated as some of the others. Well worth watching. Again, very 80s, played very straight, very melodramatic, very stylish in its cinematography and its costumes and stuff. But it's a very fun movie to watch. Recommend. Ms. 45, don't know anything about it, can't speak to it. Endless Love, oh my God, I'm not even going to talk about that. She's 15, he's 17. Yeah, okay. Nope. This was during the, hey, let's sexualize underage Brooke Shields as much as possible era. And that was something that was spearheaded by her parents. So, or at least her mother, as far as I know. Not a fan. Sorry. Not a fan. Burning, I don't know anything about. Taps. Taps is an interesting movie. It's an early version of some of the dramatics, and I say early, it's not the earliest, but it's like an Outsiders type of early ensemble, young people and their emotional, basically it's like, let's put an ensemble of young actors together with emotional material where they can fully, get into it, and see if we can bring in a younger audience, to this style of movie. That's not all it is, but there was this genre of stuff like that, like The Outside. And that's not all The Outsiders is. The Outsiders is a good story. I mean, it was a book, right? The classic book that almost everybody had to read in, my era. And it was a good movie, and it had that ensemble young people. Taps also has the ensemble young people cast, Timothy Hutton. It's got, I think it's got Tom Cruise in it. It's got, Sean Penn in it. Basically it's got all that generation of young actors in it. And it's not bad. It's really not bad. There's more to the story than just that. There's some suspense and stuff like that, it's a decent movie. I don't think it's as good as some of the others that fall in that genre, but it's a pretty decent movie. Watch it again. I wouldn't put it first in your queue, but maybe when you've burned through your queue of 80 stuff you want to watch, throw it in there. Sharky's Machine, I didn't care for. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's got Burt Reynolds and Rutger Hauer. Rutger Hauer is always good, but I never thought Sharky's Machine was very good. If you like Burt Reynolds movies, or if you like the 70s style of hero cop type movies, give it a chance. Sure. It's, again, middle of the road, just not really my bag. Gallipoli's a fantastic movie. If you like war movies, you really need to, dramatic war movies, you really need to watch Gallipoli. That's all I'll say about that. It's highly recommended if you like that style of movie. If you don't like that style of movie, you may not like it. But if you like dramatic war representations, top notch. Looker is interesting. Looker is one of those that would go on my list of movies that were on cable all the time during the 80s that are completely forgotten now. It wasn't that great a movie. It had a few unique spins in it, like unique moments, had some good talent in it. It had Albert Finney, Susan Day, who was Partridge Family, Susan Day. I don't remember it that well, but I remember that it was an interesting first watch. And it had moments. It definitely had some of that 80s, that transitional 70s to 80s kind of moments in it, especially in the cinematography and the dialogue, if I remember. But it really, it's Michael Crichton, so it's got that Michael Crichton feel. And I remember there was that the story had legs. There was story to it. The story was decent, almost sci-fi-ish, kind of story, kind of that Michael Crichton thing that walks the line between sci-fi and reality. I'm going to have to rewatch it because I don't remember enough about it. So I will add it to my list of ones to rewatch. Because I just don't remember that much about it. And I don't know why I forgot that much about it. Because I know I watched it more than once back in the 80s. This was on TV all the time. Quest for Fire got a whole lot of press at the time, positive and negative. Caveman movie. Pretty good. Not a comedic caveman movie. Dramatic caveman movie with no actual language in it. Some good actors in it. What's his name? Everett McGill, I think, is the actor's name that's a star. He was in Twin Peaks. He was in Dune, the 1984 Dune. He was in Heartbreak Ridge. He was the antagonist to Clint Eastwood. He was the main caveman. Ron Perlman was one of his sidekicks. And Ray Don Chong is naked most of the time. But I would say watch this just because it's not like very many other movies that you will have ever seen. But you probably won't want to watch it more than once because there's just not that much to it. But watch it once, and I won't spoil it any more than that because it's kind of unique. I didn't watch True Confessions. Can't say anything to it. Mommy Dearest, I didn't really care for, but I will say that Faye Dunaway as Joan Crawford was a great performance. But the story itself didn't really fascinate me much. So I saw it in bits and pieces, but I never sat down and watched the whole thing through. I just remember that there's some great acting in it from like over the top acting from Faye Dunaway. But it didn't really, it got a lot of attention, and I think it won a few awards. Didn't really appeal to me that much. Postman Always Rings Twice. Kind of a sexy noir with Jack Nicholson and Jessica Lange. Very near peak Jessica Lange. Jessica Lange was so beautiful. And she was like one of those actresses that oftentimes was cast because she was so attractive, but she may have started off a little rough in her acting career, but she turned into a really good actress. I will say that I watched this movie a couple times. It's pretty good. But again, it's just not my cup of tea. It's kind of it's very much a noir movie. A modern, an 80s noir movie, an 80s throwback noir. There were a lot of throwback noir movies in the 80s. I'll probably have to watch it again just to remember why I'm so ambivalent about it. But come on, Jack Nicholson, there's got to be something good in there, right? I don't know this foreign film or this one. My Bloody Valentine, again, slasher movie. Not really my bag. Outland is a polarizing movie. I think it's pretty good. I would probably put it on my list of underappreciated 80s movies that were on cable a lot that you should watch. I think it's a pretty decent movie. It's a psychological sci-fi outer space. I won't say crime, but kind of mystery type of thing. Worth a watch. Sean Connery, surprisingly, is not not extreme in it. He's pretty straight. You know, he plays it pretty straight. One of the few movies where he's not trying to be a bigger than life personality. I think it's worth watching. I would recommend it. You may not like it, but I would recommend it. Anyway, I won't go through the whole 80s. That's, the first 50 on the list here, but it was a really stacked era for movies. 81. I think you should give it a chance. All right, I'm going to take a pee break. I'll be back in a moment. Enjoy your commercials.
How do you get shirts so clean, Mr. Lee?
Ancient Chinese secret.
My husband, some hotshot. Here's his ancient Chinese secret. New improved Calgon. Calgon's 2 water softeners soften wash water so detergents clean better. In hardest water, Calgon helps detergents get laundry up to 30% cleaner. We need more Calgon. Ancient Chinese secret, huh?
Calgon helps detergents get laundry up to 30% cleaner.
Polo isn't just a game. It's a tradition, a way of life. Polo by Ralph Lauren. The rugged sportsman carry-all, binoculars, and woven blanket. Only $30 with any $17 purchase. Available at Rich's.
I can't believe I ate that whole thing.
You ate it, Ralph.
I can't believe I ate that whole thing.
No, Ralph, I ate it.
I can't believe I ate that whole thing.
Take 2 Alka-Seltzer.
Alka-Seltzer neutralizes all the acid your stomach has churned out. For your upset stomach and headache, take Alka-Seltzer and feel better fast.
Did you drink your Alka-Seltzer?
The whole thing.
Their ketchup's coming out a lot slower than ours does.
That's not good manners. Oh, you notice our Heinz. Here, taste it.
That's ketchup I ever tasted.
That's pouring it on a little thick.
Yeah.
Thick, rich Heinz ketchup. The taste. Allied Chemical created touch. So things like this could happen to your body. Then touch was turned into dresses. Dresses named Questo. And it keeps on happening. And happening. And happening. Questo. Made of touch. Questo. When your body has a message to send.
Okay. Probably won't go on for a long time today. I don't think there's too many people around, and I don't have a lot to talk about today. But one thing I will talk about, it since we're on the topic of movies, is so the streaming services like Netflix, Amazon, etc., are like the new cable, right? They're like they've kind of supplanted cable. But I want to talk a little bit about what cable TV meant for those of us who grew up, in the 70s and the 80s. It really kind of changed. So prior to that, you pretty much either went to the theater to see first runs or went to the drive-in maybe to catch second runs, because oftentimes a lot of movies would be primarily in the the indoor theaters during their initial run, and then maybe a year or so later would make a second run, or maybe even within the year, but they'd have a second run through the drive-throughs where they'd be part of a multi-feature night where you'd have multiple movies showing, in one night at the drive-in, for one entry fee. But if you didn't catch it at either of those, you probably weren't going to see the film. And then, some bigger movies would get re-released, and then sometimes they would eventually show up to television, but not all. A lot of movies were just not, suitable for TV at the time with the way the censorship was, or weren't deemed, interesting enough to be on TV. And then, of course, you started getting VCR and rentals and that kind of stuff. But cable, one of the interesting things about cable, hold on a second. Let me grab my coffee. I forgot to bring my coffee in. I'll be right back. I almost brought in a cup of hot water to drink instead of coffee. One of the things that cable did for us that is, I think, distinctly different than what the streaming services do now is the difference between push and pull, right? So today it's on demand. You have the entire library basically of movies to choose from. And for the most part, you just go out and pick whatever you want from this catalog when you decide you want it, and then you watch it. So for movies that aren't like getting news or popular or new releases type stuff, you kind of have to think of it. It's like, oh yeah, let me go see that. Or you have to browse and, pick it out as you're looking for something to watch. What cable did for us, especially like, the HBOs and the Cinemaxes, the movie channels. So every month they would have a fixed number of movies that they showed repeatedly, scheduled. I don't even remember what the schedule like, but it would vary. It would be, prime time on this day, or it might be late at night on this day, but several times throughout the month, repeatedly throughout the month, the same movies would play for the entire month on HBO or, on Cinemax or whatever. There would be the big premieres and stuff, but they would also have this big lump of older movies that weren't first run, first premiere show on HBO, that they would run over and over again. And a lot of them, especially if they're older movies, would run during the day. It's how they got 24 hours of movies, right? is it wouldn't all the juicy stuff that everybody wanted to watch would be during prime time. And then during the day, you would see the same movies over and over again through that month. Not every day, but you would get an opportunity to see them over and over again. So it's almost like you were encouraged to catch movies that you probably wouldn't have gone out of your way to watch just because that was all that was on. And it was on so many times that even if you stopped right in the middle, eventually you would see the movie, some of these mid-tier movies, probably multiple times in a month. And then you might catch them again, 6 months later. It would be in the rotation again, or a year later. So what it did is it was constantly putting this stuff in front of you for, movies that you would not have necessarily have gone to see. Like, for example, let me think of some 1980 movies. Like there's Battle Beyond the Stars was this old cheesy Roger Corman Star Wars knockoff. Star Wars inspired, it was trying to ride the coattails of Star Wars. It was a retelling of, the Magnificent Seven or Seven Samurai. It was basically that story almost exactly, but in space with a bunch of B movies / kind of past their prime actors. And then it had Richard Thomas, who was John Boy Walton, as the main, farm boy character. But it had George Papard. It had, what's his name? God damn it. He was in Magnificent Seven. The actor's name. But anyway, very cheesy. But it was on all the time. And so you ended up watching it, and you probably, if you were younger, especially, you probably watched it a lot, a lot of times. And what I discovered is that when people my age started making movies, especially cheap, low budget movies, they started recycling some of the footage from that old Battle Beyond the Stars thing in some of these cheap sci-fi channel space movies, which I thought was hilarious. But I never would have seen that movie. I would not have rented it. I would not have gone to the theater. I would never have seen it, except for the fact that because it was there, I saw it so many times, and it became part of this shared culture. Because most people my age saw it, whether they were interested in it or not. They at least know what it is, and they saw parts of it, even if they never sat down and watched the whole thing. But there were a lot of movies like that, especially a lot of the B movies, like The Sword and the Sorcerer is a great one. Again, let's see if we can bring that one up. What year was The Sword and the Sorcerer? I think it was 82. Let's do a search here. I can't spell sorcerer. There it is. Sorcerer. 1982. Yep. You would think it's like this, fantasy. Ooh, look at the classic fantasy art cover. Really cheesy movie. Lee Horsley, who played Matt Houston on TV. It was a TV detective series. Matt Houston was the star of it. He never hit it big, other than being, that for that short period a TV star. Had Richard Mall, the bull from Night Court, was the bad guy. He was like the evil demonic bad guy. What a cheesy fantasy story, but it was so good. It's like Beastmaster. I don't know if you've ever seen Beastmaster. It was like Beastmaster. It was that same quality of show. But the one thing that it had for it was he had this sword that was like 3 swords together on one hilt, and he could fire the 2 swords like missiles the two steel sword. It's very cheesy, but very memorable. And honestly, for that shitty kind of movie, it's not that. It's a fun movie to watch. I recommend that you watch it if you get a chance, because it's so bad it's good. Had some good people in it. The actress that played the princess, Kathleen Beller, I would never have known her name, but from the period you saw her in bit parts like that, Simon McCorkindale was he was pretty popular on TV. I think there was a couple of series that I think he appeared in. I just don't remember off the top of my head, but he was the kind of the posh, he was like the B tier posh British Roger Moore style, actor. George Maharis, he was a bad guy in so many movies of that period. Again, a B tier bad guy. And so was Richard Lynch. Richard Lynch was a little more famous, I think. But he was always the bad guy. He was great in this as this kind of evil king. And then Richard Mall, Joe I can't pronounce that. Regalbuto. I remember him because he was in Murphy Brown. That's probably where you've seen him. If you've seen him anywhere, he was one of the guys in Murphy Brown. I didn't watch it a lot. But he was just this kind of middle-aged bald guy, like the late 30-something bald guy in a fantasy action. He was not, the muscly or the, he was so out of place, but he was one of the tough mercenary guys in it. It's pretty funny. Watch this movie if you get a chance. But the point was that I think cable did something for us as part of this shared experience, shared cultural experience that you don't get a lot of these days. Because not everybody is going to pick and choose off the streaming things, the same kind of stuff, because it just doesn't appeal to them. So they're not going to, they're not going to choose to watch it because it's not something that looks like something they would enjoy. And it's going to be a smaller number of people who do. But there were basically anybody that had HBO when I was of my age knows what these movies are, has seen at least parts of them, and has that shared experience so that we can joke about it. We can talk about it. We can make references to these movies, these low-end movies. It's a little bit like the memes you have now, but not as throwaway and flighty. And I think there's something to having shared culture, even if it's bad culture and even if it's not, important parts of culture. There's this like water drip effect of having all these little things that you have in common with people that you've never met of a certain, age group, that collectively give you a starting point for understanding. It makes you feel more like part of, like, I won't say like a brotherhood, but it makes you feel, even people that are in different cliques or have different part of different castes or different geographical experiences, it gives you a commonality that I think you don't get as much of today. Well, you don't get as much sameness. There are way, way more cliques and more individual subcultures now that don't share a lot in common. And I think there's a cumulative effect for things like that. You know, the same thing can be true for music. Much more fragmentation of music. I won't necessarily say that I do think there are negative effects to that. But I won't say it's like a big deal that like something that needs to be, needs to be corrected or something that was so superior. It's just different. It's different. And I think there are ramifications of those differences. Oh, that was him. That's right. He was in Manimal. That's where he comes from. I'm glad they're showing this. That's what I remember him from was Manimal. Oh, and Melody Anderson from Flash Gordon. I forgot she was in that. Dale Arden from Flash Gordon. Manimal. Manimal was such a joke. Very 80s. Oh, what a time to be alive. All right. Well, I'm not going to keep going. I don't have much more to say about that. And honestly, with the mood I'm in, I'm afraid if I start talking about philosophy or politics or any of that shit, that it's just going to turn into a depressing shit show. So I think I'm going to end it there. I don't think there's anybody hanging out today, so I don't think anybody's going to miss anything. But if you do watch this on VOD, oh, hey, Krabs. If you do watch this on VOD, take some of those movies that I recommended and add them to your queue. Give them a chance, especially if you haven't seen Dragon Slayer. Watch Dragon Slayer. If you watch none of the others, watch Dragon Slayer. It's a great movie. Anyway, good to see you, Krabs. Thanks for hanging out. I'm going to call it a day. I'm going to go wallow in my blanket of depression today for a while, but I will be back tomorrow playing Arc Raiders. We're moving towards the aggression phase. I just need a couple more blueprints and I think I'm going to be ready. I need to unlock the skill, the breach, the security breach skill, and I need to get a couple of more blueprints, a decent gun blueprint, and I'd love to get the Wolfpack blueprint or the secret grenade blueprint. I'll take either one of those. Once I have that, I think it's time for aggression. But anyway, that's a sneak peek for what's going to go on tomorrow. For today, enjoy your lazy Sunday, and I will see you guys tomorrow. See you later, Krabs.
Please do not be alarmed. We are about to engage the nozzle. Please do not move while the nozzle is engaging. Moving will disrupt calibration of the nozzle. Please wait while we calibrate the nozzle. Please do not look away from the nozzle. The nozzle is now calibrating. The nozzle is still calibrating. The nozzle has completed calibration. Thank you.